We return to this world as Trunks is finishing up his story. The Z-Fighters and Bulma all listen with expressions ranging from stoically trying to conceal their fear to out-and-out horror. Bulma sits on a rock in front of the young man, clutching one of his hands and wearing a look of deep sorrow for all that her future son has been forced to endure. She then speaks up, commending Trunks for his bravery through everything, but Raditz is less parental, and so rather bluntly asks Trunks why he didn't come back when Frieza first invaded, since if he had killed him then, they could have had Kakarot, Gohan and Yamcha to help fight the androids. Trunks looks at his feet and admits that his reasoning for that is a rather selfish one. He knew that his parents didn't get together until after Frieza's first invasion, so for the sake of his own existence he couldn't risk going back to any point before that. Raditz still doesn't like this, his own history of deceitful tactics making him question the legitimacy of anything Trunks has told them, but he can't deny that at least physically the boy does look like him and Bulma, so he's not going to dismiss it outright. However, nor will he trust him yet either, especially when in a matter of months the baby will arrive, and that will prove the truth of this newcomer's story one way or the other. For Trunks' part, he is disturbed by his father's reaction to his arrival, after mourning the man for 3 years. To see him again but be greeted with distrust and lack of recognition is heartbreaking for the youth. However, at least his mother is more or less the same, and so he stays close to her, almost feeling like a child clinging to the only familiarity that he can find. The other Z-Fighters approach the stranger now that he is done talking, and he takes a moment to shake all of their hands. This is his first time meeting Tien, and he can see why his dad always said he was his favourite of Uncle Kakarot's friends. Aunt Chi-Chi is another unfamiliar face to him, despite having met her when he was quite young, and so he gives her a smile which she returns wistfully, saying that she wishes Gohan was here, since he would have been so excited to have a cousin at last. Trunks nods that his dad always said he was an incredible kid, and this makes the de facto guardian happy at least. Next up is Krillin, who quips that he sure takes after Raditz, which Trunks agrees with, not sure what else to say. And then finally he meets Nappa. Compared to the others, Trunks knows the least about him, since though his father had told him that they used to be comrades, and Nappa along with the other Saiyan Vegeta were some of the strongest warriors in the universe, he never liked to talk much about his life before Earth. Nappa seems excited to meet Trunks, and says that he'd like to fight him sometime, since the kid said he was the legendary Super Saiyan. Trunks is surprised by this sentiment, saying that Nappa must have fought his dad as a Super Saiyan plenty of times, but Raditz replies that he's not the Super Saiyan the young man described. This shocks Trunks further, since for as long as he can remember his dad's been a Super Saiyan, and so he turns to Raditz asking if he's kidding. Raditz growls that he's not, and Trunks goes pale, saying they have to fix that, since without Super Saiyan there's no way they can beat the androids. Coolly, Raditz asks how they're going to fix that, and Trunks says that he'll have to teach him how to be one, smirking a little bit at the irony that after years of his dad fruitlessly trying to teach him how to become a Super Saiyan, now their roles are reversed. Nappa proudly declares that if they're doing special Super Saiyan training, he wants in, and Trunks agrees, saying the more Super Saiyans they have on their side the better. And so instead of returning to the future as he had originally planned, Trunks decides to stay in the past and help everyone prepare for the android attack. Though Raditz knows the lookout would be the best place to do this training, he still doesn't fully trust Trunks, and so while Chi-Chi, Tien and Krillin go there, he, Trunks and Nappa return to Capsule Corp, so that they can keep the existence of the lookout secret for the time being. The trio of Saiyans make good use of the gravity room, and see exceptional gains during this time thanks to Trunks' power, Raditz's tactical mind, and Nappa's newly acquired bag of tricks from an additional 18 months training with Roshi, though this is not the only benefit they receive. Due to this being the first time Raditz and Nappa have spent time together since Vegeta's departure, the pair are able to talk openly about their history, with Nappa admitting that he only bullied Raditz to keep Vegeta from turning on him, and Raditz in turn showing his growth by forgiving the Big Oaf, and saying they were both different men before they came to Earth, so perhaps it's time they bury the hatchet and start fresh. Nappa agrees, and so the last two full-blooded Saiyans on Earth shake hands. Even better than this reconciliation with Nappa is the arrival of baby Trunks, and with it, Raditz finally accepts everything the youth from the future has told him is true. As a result, when Bulma and baby Trunks are sleeping, Raditz calls his future son up to the roof of Capsule Corp, and apologizes for holding him at arm's length for the last few months. Trunks is just delighted to finally see some semblance of the man he admired, and so the two have a heart-to-heart, reminding Trunks of the nights he and his dad would spend talking after a long day of training. This conversation ends with a hug initiated by Raditz, and a promise that he will protect his family from the android menace, and that includes future Trunks. From here on in, Raditz starts to open up more to future Trunks, and so in turn becomes more receptive to his teachings. This does wonders for his growth, but also puts a new worry on his mind. If everything Trunks said is true, then everyone will die unless they get stronger than even him. This spurs Raditz to suggest that he and his future son make use of the time chamber, and this amazes Trunks, who never knew such a place existed. Though it breaks Raditz's heart to not see his newborn son for a whole year, he at least takes some solace in the fact that infant Trunks probably won't even realize he's gone, and some one-on-one time might be able to lift a bit of the weight adult Trunks carries on his shoulders. Going back down to only 10 times Earth's gravity actually hampers their training during the early days, and so roughly 3 months into their year in the hyperbolic time chamber, Trunks heads further into the void to see if there is anything they can put to use. Raditz is eating at the time, until he hears the boy scream, and more specifically scream in pain. Flying at top speed, he feels the heat rising the further and further he gets away from the entrance, and then up ahead he sees Trunks writhing on the ground, flames lapping over his clothes, hair and skin. The Saiyan warrior calls for his son to hang on, but as if the room itself is acting in defiance of him, a wall of flame bursts between them. Trunks' howls of pain quickly grow louder, and Raditz feels fear and anger pool in his stomach. He couldn't save Kakarot or Gohan. As it stands, he's too weak to save his friends and family, and now his son is burning alive mere feet from him and he's too weak to save him. No more, he's tired of being a weakling. And with that new conviction, Raditz's hair burns gold, his eyes glow blue, and a powerful new aura bursts from him. This blows away the wall of flames, so that Raditz may approach his son, but as he lands beside him, he finds that the room is calm and temperate once more. Pulling out a senzu bean, he feeds it to Trunks, who rolls over and coughs from smoke inhalation. But when the younger man opens his eyes, his mouth falls open. His father has done it. He's become the Super Saiyan. Now being able to spar in Super Saiyan, Raditz and Trunks' training becomes significantly more intense, and though it still takes many weeks of hard work before Raditz can tap into the form at will, the change in their power when they step back out onto the lookout is staggering. Nappa and the humans cannot believe how much these two have grown in just a day by their standards, and Nappa eagerly wants to go in with Raditz next. However, the other Saiyan advises him to choose another partner, since thanks to his training with Kakarot, Gohan and Chi-Chi before he and Vegeta arrived, he only has 6 more months at most that he can spend in that dimension. Nappa accepts this, and so says that in that case he'll go with Trunks, since he's still probably the strongest member of their group. Trunks agrees, but says that he'd like to at least have one decent meal and maybe a quick nap before going in for another year of intense training. Raditz heartily agrees, and so the 3 Saiyans head off to ask Chi-Chi if she's got any leftover food they can have, but when they find her, there is a faraway look in her eyes. Raditz asks his sister-in-law what's wrong, and with the same distance in her voice, she asks if he can sense it too. Raditz looks puzzled, and so she gives him a set of coordinates and he begins to focus his ki sense. Suddenly, as if he's been hit over the head, Raditz feels Kakarot's ki. Staggering back a little at this shocking sensation, he refocuses and finds that Kakarot is not alone. Gohan, Vegeta, Yamcha, Frieza, King Cold and the Ginyus are all there too. But how is that possible when they're all dead? And stranger still, he senses Chi-Chi and Nappa down there as well, despite each of them standing right in front of him. And then, is that his own key signature? Something truly weird is going on here, and so Raditz decides to check it out. Trunks, Nappa and Tien agree to accompany the Big Saiyan, and so the 4-man squad depart down to the surface. The source of the key is located in a forest not far from West City, and when the group touch down, Raditz bursts into Super Saiyan as a precaution, earning a low-impressed whistle from Nappa, who says that if he got that from his time in the chamber, then he's definitely going in when they get back. Trunks gives the 2 Saiyans a disapproving look, his first instinct being to lie low and not draw attention, which loudly talking, or a sudden swell in power, would both do. He then pokes his head out from around a tree, and is presented with a shock of his own. Though he had only recognized a few of the keys seemingly assembled here, he very much recognized the object at the center of the anomaly, his time machine. Reaching into his jacket pocket, he finds the time machine capsule still there, which just adds another layer of mystery, and so in a whisper he relays this development to the others. He then tells them to stay down and watch as the hatch begins to open. Rising out of the time machine is a large insect creature, who we all know as Imperfect Cell. Thanks to this version of Trunks being the son of Raditz, who is notable for his height, Bulma designed the time machine accordingly to accommodate a larger frame, which subsequently has allowed Cell to fit without reverting, albeit still somewhat uncomfortably. From their hiding place, Tien asks Trunks if he knows this guy, but the hybrid replies that he was just about to ask them that. The others shake their heads, and this stumps the cautious Trunks as to how they should approach this situation. However, ever the blunt instrument, Nappa feels the best course of action is to be direct, and so he steps out from the tree trees and demands that the Bugman explain why he has all their key signatures. Cursing the bald man, Trunks follows in case this stranger turns hostile, and so Tien and Raditz do likewise. At the sight of Nappa, Cell had taken a defensive stance, but when he sees Trunks, this changes, and something resembling a smile crosses his beak-like mouth. Clearing his throat, the bioandroid asks if he is correct in assuming that this is Master Trunks, as he drops into a low bow. Trunks furrows his brow at being addressed like this, though he does confirm that he is Trunks, which Cell calls marvelous. The young half-Saiyan then asks if Cell expects him to recognize him, but Cell replies that gracious no, he supposes Trunks wouldn't. He then introduces himself at last, and says that Mistress Bulma sent him back in time to assist Trunks in his mission. Trunks looks a little doubtful, so Cell elaborates, saying that in his time it's been over 10 years since Trunks vanished into the past and never returned. As a result, Bulma concluded that even with all their combined strength, they were not able to defeat the androids, and so modified him from a Red Ribbon Army prototype to become the ultimate android buster. Trunks admits that sounds like something his mother would do, calling her incredibly resourceful, and Cell gives another smile, saying he's glad he was able to run into him so quickly, since he was afraid he'd have to scour the whole planet to find him before the android attack, hence why he came almost 3 years early. Relaxing a little, Trunks says it's a good thing he did, since by the feel of it, Cell's almost as strong as him, and could be a great asset in their training. Cell bows once more, saying that he lives to serve, and so the group decide to return to the lookout, ready to get on with their training now with a new ally in the mix. Meanwhile, Goku and Gohan are a year into their training with Kibito and the Supreme Kai. Thanks to Shin, Goku has been able to gain access to a host of godly abilities, like a more advanced form of the Kai Kai, and the ability to create objects out of nothing. Gohan, meanwhile, has come to understand his own ki much better thanks to having someone like himself to study it with, and Shin has quickly come to like the young mortal for his studious and inquisitive nature. Their combat training with Kibito is just as fruitful, if not quite as amiable, since Kibito still doesn't really like having them here, especially when it may be many years before Lord Beerus wakes up and rejects the foolish notion of a Supreme Kai sacrificing his life for a mortal. However, it seems that he will not have to wait that long, as during the second year of training, Goku tries his hand at creating a crystal ball to observe his friends and family back on Earth. Though he cannot communicate directly with them, he can see and hear them, and so through observation comes to learn about the imminent android attack. This forewarning compels him to once more ask Shin to revive Gohan, since by now the boy is probably comparable to Final Form Frieza, and with his rage, he could hold the key to victory over the androids. Kibito, in his usual brusque manner, shoots the idea down immediately, reminding Goku of Lord Shin's lifelink, and how he cannot sacrifice the well-being of the whole universe for one mortal, no matter how unfortunate their demise might have been. But instead of discouraging Goku as Kibito had hoped, it seems to give the Saiyan an idea, and in a sly voice, Goku asks Kibito if he has a lifelink with anyone. Kibito answers that he does not, and this makes Goku leap with joy, saying it's settled then, Kibito can revive Gohan. Kibito recoils a little, saying that he couldn't possibly, but Goku grins that when they first met he did say he would do anything the Supreme Kai willed, and it seems like Shin is at least considering reviving Gohan, which means on some level he wants it to happen, or he would have just sent them away. Kibito growls that this is because Lord Shin is too indulgent of mortals, but Goku pleads with him, saying he'll do anything if Kibito does it. Now it is Kibito's turn to see an opportunity unfold before him, and he has to suppress a smug grin. Lord Shin would not approve of this plan, but it's his job to protect him, and that sometimes means from himself. Yes, this is in the Supreme Kai's best interest. He then tells Goku that he will do this, if Goku can complete a test for him, but he will only get 3 attempts, and if he fails, he must swear on his honor to abandon this quest to have the Supreme Kai forfeit his life. Goku, thinking that he can handle any test Kibito might have, readily agrees, and so the pair shake on it. A few minutes later, Goku and Kibito find themselves on a plateau overlooking the rest of the world, and planted in the center of the stone is a sword. Kibito smirks that Goku's test will be to remove the sword from the stone, before mentioning blithely that even the Supreme Kai has never managed to achieve this. It is at this moment that Goku realizes he might have been tricked, but no matter, they made a deal, and if he can do this, Gohan will be able to go home at last. Planting his feet and wrapping both hands around the hilt, Goku begins to pull, and nothing happens. Goku keeps tugging for several minutes straight without the blade budging an inch, and when he stops briefly to exhale deeply, the attendant Kai tells him that he has ceased pulling, so that counts as his first try. This frightens Goku, so he tries to put his whole weight into dislodging the sword, standing on the crossguard as a lever and tugging backwards, but predictably, this only causes him to lose his footing and go tumbling over the edge of the mesa. After a splash and a wet flight back up, Kibito grins that this was attempt number 2, and asks if Goku really needs to bother with a third attempt, when they both know how it will play out. Fiercely, Goku declares that the other tries were just a warm-up, and now he's ready to pull the Z-Sword out and get his son revived. And Goku means this with his whole heart. Rage bubbles up inside him, both at the possibility that he was tricked into this hopeless wager, but also at being so close to saving Gohan, yet so helpless to take that final step. He feels like he did when Lebu told him that he wouldn't be able to see the Grand Kai for centuries, and this reminds him of that form he accessed during that fight that made him crazy strong. That is what he needs right now, though he's never been able to conjure it on command, a fact which only frustrates Goku more. He tries tapping into those feelings of anger and frustration, but just like all the other times, this yields nothing. Meanwhile, beside him, Kibito is growing impatient, and so he instructs Goku to take a hold of the sword now, or forfeit his final chance to revive Gohan. Gohan. Each time he's used this form, it has been to do with Gohan, either grief over his death or fear of failing him. It's not just anger he needs, it's love. And so as Goku lays his hands on the hilt once more, he thinks of the son he loves, of all the experiences the boy will never have unless he succeeds here, of how it was his own foolishness that cost Gohan his life. And in that moment, Goku finally taps into the nexus between rage and love, his hair beginning to spike up and change color, while his eyes also change their hue. His new golden aura flares, and as he screams, the entire mesa crumbles around him. Kibito floats up into the air, shock on his face, but Goku stays where he is, never letting go of the Z-Sword, and this tenacity pays off, as with one final declaration that this will not be the end for his son, Goku shatters the last of the plateau, freeing the sword from the stone and allowing him to briefly hold it aloft. Kibito is awed by this mighty golden warrior bearing the Z-Sword, and starts to wonder if perhaps he misjudged those mortals. But then the impressive effect of Goku's triumph is somewhat undercut by him dropping the sword on his own head, since even as a Super Saiyan, he cannot hold the blade for long. Returning to the remnants of the plateau, Kibito examines the Z-Sword and confirms that it truly has been freed. Being a man of his word, Kibito humbly tells the Saiyan to fetch his son, and he will revive him as promised. However, he wants Goku to make one last promise to him in return. Goku nods solemnly, and so Kibito implores him that if ever a time comes when the Supreme Kai needs a protector, he must use this golden form to be Lord Shin's stalwart shield. Goku swears that he will, and at last Kibito feels ready to fulfill his end of the bargain. Back in the Plainlands, Shin and Gohan are just finishing off a lesson when they are suddenly greeted by a stony-faced Kibito and a Goku who now has bluish-green eyes, spiky blonde hair, and is dragging a sword behind him. It is an odd sight to say the least. Shin asks what has happened, and while Goku de-transforms and drops the heavy sword at the Supreme Kai's feet, Kibito recaps their wager and Goku's resultant success. Shin sighs that Kibito should not have been so reckless in his underestimation of mortals, and the pink-skinned attendant agrees, saying that this is not a mistake he will make twice. He then states that now he must honor his agreement, and that he hopes the Supreme Kai will forgive him. Shin says there is nothing to forgive, since his old friend is doing a noble thing here, and this makes Kibito smile. He then closes his eyes, and with a faint twitch of his facial muscles, Kibito falls over, dead. Above Gohan's head, his halo fades away, and Goku runs over to hug him excitedly. Kibito, who now bears the halo in the boy's place, stands up and offers to take him back to Earth so that he may reunite with his family, but Goku shrugs there's no need, since he's actually gotten pretty good at Kai in the last few months. And just like that, the two Saiyans vanish, not even staying long enough for the pair of Kai to warn them what'll happen if a deceased person returns to the living world. Up at the lookout, everyone is training together with their new ally Cell, who has proven an incredibly valuable training partner over the last few months. His strength and knowledge of their techniques have allowed them all to refine their abilities by watching him, and is therefore a much stronger group that suddenly sense two familiar key signatures materializing on the lookout. Running over, they see Goku and Gohan, and so with Chi-Chi in the lead, she, Raditz, and Krillin tackle hug the father-son duo. Goku smiles that it's great to see them, while Gohan says how much he missed them all, earning him an extra tight hug from his mother, who swears that she's never gonna let him out of her sight again. While Gohan tries to convince her that he's fine, Raditz helps his brother to his feet, and asks why he has a halo. Goku shrugs that he guesses because unlike Gohan, he's still technically dead. This shocks everyone, with Tien asking how Goku is even here then, to which the Saiyan admits that he actually doesn't know. A voice then rings out in all of their heads, one that is unfamiliar to most of the Z fighters, but who Goku and Gohan recognize as Shin. He explains that from what Gohan has told him about the lookout and its magic, it exists in the heavenly realm outside of the normal world, making it quite similar in fact to his own world and its relation to Otherworld. For that reason, he theorizes that the same effect which allows the deceased Goku to exist freely in his world also applies to the lookout, meaning that no matter how long Goku stays in the lookout, he won't be pulled back to the other world. When Goku hears Shin's theory, his face splits into an even wider grin than before, and he asks if this means he can stay here. Shin considers for a moment, that feels like a lifetime to the defenders of Earth, then ultimately says that yes he can, though there are a few ground rules that need to be established first. Firstly, if Goku is to remain here, he will be expected to resume his guardian duties, as the Supreme Kai can only allow this bending of the metaphysical rules in the service of something selfless. Goku says that's no problem, and so Shin moves on to the second point, which is more of a warning than a rule, saying that if Goku was somehow to die on the lookout, he wouldn't return to Otherworld, instead his soul would be simply destroyed forever. Goku gulps at this point, but tells Shin to continue, and so the deity gives his final condition, that Goku is not to leave the heavenly realm of the lookout under any circumstances. What he is doing is the result of a great deal of trust being placed in the mortal, and if Goku breaks that trust, not only will Shin recall him to Otherworld, but he will personally see to it that Goku spends the remainder of his afterlife in hell. Goku says he understands, and so Shin wishes him good luck, before fading from everyone's minds. The next few days are spent in non-stop celebration of the return of Goku and Gohan. No one is more overjoyed than Chi-Chi, who seldom leaves either of their sides, while Raditz and Krillin are simply delighted, taking a chance to test their respective powers against the Saiyan. Neither can compare, which admittedly for Krillin has been the way of things for years, but Raditz is a little disheartened that even after a whole extra year of training, Kakarot has somehow managed to widen the gap between them to the point where it was when they first met. Goku giggles that he did train with the god of all creation after all, so that's bound to give him a leg up, and Raditz can try it if he wants, though he may have to die first. Raditz mumbles that he'll pass, making the Turtle School duo laugh, while from the sidelines, Trunks and Gohan watch. Gohan has very quickly formed a close relationship with both the baby Trunks of his timeline and his future cousin, and he often trains with the latter alongside their two fathers. However, they're not alone, as Nappa and Cell are never far behind. Though Gohan and Nappa have an amicable if not necessarily close relationship, with the Big Saiyan preferring to spend his time with the adults, it is Cell who most interests the boy. The bioandroid had explained his background in biology early on, and this fascinates the scientifically minded Gohan, who feels that with some research, Cell's genetic makeup could do wonderful things for the world. Cell grins that in that case, before he and Trunks return to the future, he will be sure to leave a bit of biomatter behind for the boy to experiment on. And so with Goku and Gohan now back in the mix, training goes even more smoothly, with the remaining time flying by and seeing massive growth for everyone involved. Finally, the fated day arrives, and so about an hour before Trunks said the androids would attack, the group of Gohan, Raditz, Trunks, Chi-Chi, Nappa, Cell, Krillin and Tien depart the lookout, with a fresh crop of senzu beans, and a burning passion to prevent the hellish reality they have been warned of. Goku sees them off with a sad smile, wishing he could take part in the fight with them, but he knows all too well that Shin meant what he said about pulling him back and sending him to hell, and so the Guardian watches what will unfold from on high, placing his trust in his friends and family to step up and prove that they can save the Earth without him.